just got one thing on my report.
Okay, it is 6:04, so I will call the February 7th meeting of the North Kingstown School Committee to order. The first agenda item is going into executive session to convene and recess into executive session pursuant RIGL 4246 for the discussion of any discussions of job performance, character, or physical or mental health of a person or persons, provided that that person or persons affected shall have been notified in advance in writing and advised that there may be that require that discussion to be held in open meeting pursuant RIGL 42465, certified employee A, certified employee B, certified employee D. Item 2, sessions pertaining to potential litigation or legal advice in collective bargaining pursuant RIGL 42465A2, NEA-NK negotiations. Item 3, discussion or action of any investigative proceedings regarding allegations of misconduct, certified employee C, either civil or criminal pursuant to RIGL 42465A4, matters pertaining to safety/security pursuant to RIGL 42465A3. Do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're going to executive session. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, and we will reconvene into open session. And I will disclose that there were no votes taken in executive session, and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can you please call roll? Excuse me.
Erin Earl.
Here.
Robert Case.
Here.
Jennifer Hoskins.
Here.
Jennifer Lima. Here. Thomas Briety. Christine LaPierre.
I am here.
Thank you. Did you get everyone?
Gabriel Anthony.
Okay, thank you. Are you getting, do you want to mute that, Tom? Sorry, or Jen, can you help Tom? Excuse us for 1 second, we're having technical difficulties. You good? Okay, perfect, thank you. And the calendar, please.
Monday, February 27th, school committee business meeting. Thursday, March 9th, school committee business meeting. Wednesday, February 15th, DEI subcommittee.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, presentations and recognitions. Something we just wanted to take a minute to officially do, we know we communicated this via email, is welcome Dr. Pallotta as our interim superintendent. As you all saw, the accolades are many, and we are very grateful that he is joining us. So thank you so much. And also a very special thanks to Ms. Sapala for filling in and really being so generous and thoughtful filling those roles as we were searching for a new interim superintendent. So thank you both very much, and we appreciate all you are doing for the students, faculty, staff, everyone in the district. So thank you. Next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. We have a list here, and it looks like the first person that signed up is Bill. So if you'd like to make your way to the microphone.
Thank you for allowing me to be here today, everyone. My name is Bill Penoyer. I'm chairman of the North Kingstown Parades Committee. Members of the Parades Committee have asked me to seek an effort to enlarge the curriculum of the North Kingstown Band in order to allow a portion to participate in the final leg of the Memorial Day Parade, which runs from Collation Corner to Elm Grove Cemetery. The bands of the two middle schools, of course, perform yeoman's jobs on that day. They perform from Wilson Park at the beginning. They follow all the way down West Main to Brown to Phillips, and then they end up their job at Wickford Middle School. From that on, you could describe the aftermath as a bit of a rogue march, because there is no music whatsoever. And one debilitating thing for any group marching, and especially for color guards, is not to have any musical accompaniment. And for this reason, we're asking that some provision to be made for the band from the high school to participate. I understand many of the high schoolers are away, checking out colleges and universities. But I'm looking forward to seeing perhaps if we could form an ensemble of the high school to perform that much needed work, provide music. To have music for a parade is like dancing. People joke at the Veterans Day Parade, they could start in Wickford and go all the way down to the Twin Willows as long as there's music. And for all of that, I thank you for all this. I'd like to bring up one other matter, however, which is dear to my heart, and is the learning of the loss of Barton Hellawell. Barton Hellawell was a Navy man. He spent, I'm sure at least, a generation here in North Kingstown. He taught English at both middle schools. He taught English at the high school, and then finished up his career as principal of Wickford Middle School. On one occasion, he went before the school committee asking for an appropriation for a very significant English text. And he said, the text of this is so powerful. And he certainly spoke as a Navy man, because he said, This is the equivalent of a fuselage of a battleship. And this certainly is to be remembered very fondly. And I remember there was no debate about agreeing to that effect. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to all of you to complete your winter's nap in May and walk the whole route for the Memorial Day Parade. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next for citizen comment is Kalia.
Hello, school committee. Can you hear me? Is this working? Okay. My name is Kalia Schmerer. I live at 383 West Allenton Road in North Kingstown. I am here to commend the school department and the DEI subcommittee in particular for their persistence and participation in this equity audit that just wrapped up. I supported it when it was first proposed, and I'm proud of our district for putting in the effort to experience this really important self-reflection. I take this work very seriously, and I put value in the process and the outcome. I have read the report, and it's clear to me that there are inequities in the school district. There are areas of concern where improvement is necessary. We're able to see this data and move forward with it because of the dedicated and courageous leadership in this school district. The school committee we had last year saw the importance and the benefit of starting this work, and it is my hope that the school committee we have now will be dedicated to reviewing the outcomes, designing a plan forward, and implementing recommendations that will improve the school community for historically marginalized individuals, which will in turn improve the school district for everyone. I encourage the school committee, the school staff, teachers, admin, the community to appreciate the value in having this data and these recommendations. I encourage immediate action. I think the mere fact that we did an audit is indicative of a desire to improve, but I also think the results of the audit are indicative that the process was put off for too long. It seems like there's always going to be a reason to say, we'll deal with it later, the next administration will deal with it. That's not good enough at this point. The areas of concern that this audit identifies are things that can shape people's entire lives. This isn't a fad or a trend. This is people's lives, and this work is a priority. I hope that it is treated as such as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Tara.
So we're actively adjusting it right now. Right now it's turned up pretty loud.
Can you turn your microphone on so you can address the question? Thanks.
So we have somebody backstage right now actively adjusting it. Right now it's maxed out pretty loud, so we just want to determine if maybe that last speaker was a little bit softer, but there is somebody backstage right now working on it. So if you wouldn't mind just directing your voice into the microphone. Thank you.
And feel free to move the, if you want to move the stand closer so you're comfortable in your,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so my name is Tara Shabbat, and I live at 97 Dodge Street in North Kingstown. I am the mother of 2 students at Fishing Cove Elementary School. We moved to North Kingstown and bought a fixer-upper the summer before our daughter started kindergarten because we wanted them to grow up in the amazing North Kingstown school system we had heard so much about. 3 years later, we are still fixing up our house, have fallen in love with this wonderful community, and made amazing friends. We have loved Fishing Cove. We could not ask for better teachers or administrators for our children. That being said, after many conversations, my husband and I have unfortunately decided that if big changes are not made in the school system, we will not be sending our children to middle school in North Kingstown. And I know we are not the only ones. I can't count how many times an out-of-state family member has called and asked me what the heck is going on in my town because the North Kingstown school system was in the news yet again. We had faith that things would turn around. We hoped that after what these kids went through with COVID, that the schools would have mental health counselors available for group sessions or one-on-one, that extra support teachers would be put in the classrooms to review and strengthen the skills that were lost or never learned while students were sent home. But all we heard were more administrative jobs being added. One would think that numerous sexual misconduct claims within the school system would have been top priority last year, but what we heard most about from the school committee was the equity audit. This year, I would hope finding and keeping a superintendent would be priority number one, but I then learned that you have spent your time and resources on a home gun safety resolution, a resolution we as adults are supposed to sign and return. This is not only useless, as I don't think an irresponsible gun owner is going to say thank God for a letter, it is wasteful of time the school committee could be using to solve the real problems that are facing them at this moment. But it is also insulting to parents. What is next? Will parents have to sign a paper promising to lock the front door properly, to turn the stove off when done cooking, to give their children the right vegetables? I'm an adult, and you have no oversight on me or my family or what we do in our home. If you would please stop focusing on political ideology and focus on just the students and their education. I truly do believe we as a school system and a community could finally pull ourselves out of the mess we've been drowning in the past few years. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, the next person that signed up is Josh.
How you doing? Joshua Joseph, 409 South Main Street, Woonsocket, Rhode Island. What she said was perfect. So I just wanted to say that when I went to go get my blue card, I, took a class from trained professionals. I had to learn about safe storage, how to handle a gun. I got to go shoot. And their biggest thing that they drilled, that instructor at that time drilled into our heads, was safety. There's a saying that says, ask the experience, not the learn. That's actually my biggest critique of Moms Demand Action. I mean, we all want to keep people safe, our children. There's no disagreement on that. But we need to bring in people who know a lot about it. So my asking an adult to sign a letter, like she had said, that woman, no, we're not going to do that. There's lawsuits coming for that. And on the conspiratorial side of all the crazy MAGA people is that you're going to form a registry. We don't want lawsuits for you. You guys already have a lot of problems in North Kingston. And as an activist, it's like we just keep seeing you guys over and over and over again. And it's just not helping the kids. Like I said, when you go to get a gun, when you go get your blue card, safety is number one. It's not shooting. Safety. That's all they drilled into our heads was safety. My idea is for you guys to play it safe, drop this letter, stop making people feel uncomfortable, right? We all want to be inclusive here. We don't want to make people feel like you're going to get a registry, and that's what people are already talking about, whether it's true or not. That's the way it's going. So why don't we have somebody from the 2A community talk about, with Moms Demand Action, get together on this as adults and say, we're going to teach a class here or wherever about gun safety storage for whoever wants to show up, and get the real facts, get an in-depth class for it, and it'll do better, way better than that letter ever would. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next person signed up is Lori.
Hi, Lori Duffy, 88 Haverhill Ave. First, I just want to thank the school committee members for their dedication to ensuring all students have access to quality education. And I also want to welcome the new interim superintendent and say that I'm hopeful that in the time that you'll be working in our great town, that you too will support these efforts. In reviewing the equity audit report, I was struck with just how reasonable a lot of the recommendations were, and I think some of them can be implemented quite quickly. I fully support having our already wonderful education staff train related to equity. More knowledge is never a bad thing, but lack of knowledge can have terrible consequences. In looking at the anonymous reporting system to allow students to report bullying and hate-related acts, a few months ago I went online to look at the bullying form, and it wasn't working correctly. I couldn't access it, and that has since been rectified, so I was happy to see that. Then we just need to change the verbiage on something that we do already have so students know when it's appropriate to access it, and what the process is, what will happen after they hit send on that. So that seems like a reasonable fix. In addition, updating discipline actions and informing teachers of the changes and expectations should be relatively easy to change as well. There's plenty of schools who've done the equity audit. They've had to update their policies, their discipline policies, to reflect those audits, and I'm sure that we could collect valuable information from other schools to see if that's a good fit for ours as well. I want to speak quickly about the closing achievement gaps. I think that was the most concerning thing that I saw in the report. The audit talked about many areas, not just race. And I think that everyone in the stage tonight understands that, although there has been some rhetoric in the community about, oh, this is just trying to divide us and this is all just about race, and that is both untrue and unfortunate. There's really important data in this report, and the recommendations are not based on someone's personal opinion. They're based on evidence. They're based on research. They're based on the literature. We need to look at our low-income students, our special education students, and our BIPOC students. They are more at risk, for example, to be suspended, and those achievement gaps are not shrinking over time. And I know some of that might be related to COVID, but still, you're looking at these gaps over time. They're remaining the same despite intervention. We need all our children to feel safe and important, and that includes our
30
BIPOC
seconds.
kids, our LGBT community, our special education, ESL, and our low income. Everyone, all the time, no exceptions. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. The next person signed up is Eric.
How are you? Eric Miller, 101 Huckleberry Road, North Kingstown. I originally planned to discuss the proposed firearm registry, which violates Rhode Island State Law Title 11-47-41, titled Government Firearm Registration Prohibition. However, you have since removed that from your gun safety agenda. While I agree with the principle of safe and secure storing of firearms and reminding the public of good practices and applicable laws, I do not think it's the school committee's responsibility or mission to dictate safe gun practices to parents. With that said, if the school is going to delve into this arena, it should go further with its education ambitions regarding firearms. Maybe the school or town should offer firearm training classes or extracurricular programs which would train citizens and students alike in proper firearm handling, operation, transportation, and storage. The benefit of live fire training would teach discipline, eye-hand coordination, among other benefits, and eliminate the mystery of what a gun is like going off or firing. Everyone knows the old adage, curiosity killed the cat. Well, the curiosity surrounding firearms can be deadly. Eliminating the curiosity through education and training will reduce the number of firearm-related accidents. Guns are not to be feared, as they are only a tool. The wielder of the tool is responsible for the outcome of any given situation. Poor gun safety and storage practices, along with malicious intent, ruin and stain the image of firearms in America. However, proper exposure, education, and training will reduce these problems. In closing, if the school committee feels empowered to educate parents via a letter of firearm storage, I would encourage you to go the whole 9 yards and offer proper firearm training curriculum for all ages, all citizens of this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, is there any additional citizen comments? Sorry, is there any additional folks that would like to speak? That's the end of the list that we have up here. We're good? Okay, thank you very much. So the next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. So I'll turn over to Dr. Pallotta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I only have one issue under my report, which is good news. I received a memo from Janice Strain, the visual arts educator. She indicated in her memo that the high school visual arts department is proud to announce the Scholastic Art and Writing results for this year's competition. Gold Key Award winners are Clara Drinkwater and Liv Everson. Silver Key Award winners are Jackie Blair, Lola Utis, and Gwen Ruffalo. An honorable mention Bruna Rodriguez, Gren Rafalo, Juliana Coughlin. And lastly, at the Hera Gallery's 31st Biennial Young Adult Exhibition, Liv Everson won first place in painting and mixed media. And Mrs. Strain wanted me to state those names publicly, and congratulations to all those children. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for that recognition, and congratulations to the students and the amazing teachers that support them. So the next item on the agenda is our routine items. So we have the executive session. As I said, there were no votes taken in the executive session, and so can I please get a motion to seal the minutes from that session?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Chase, seconded by Ms. Lima. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. And then that moves us on to the items that are listed under the consent agenda. Does anyone want to remove any of those items?
C3 and 4.
Okay, so I'm hearing C3 and C4.
And we need to remove E.
Okay, and then item E.
Yes.
Okay. Any other things that people want to remove? Okay. And so for the consent agenda, we will be, can I get a motion to approve the remaining items? Okay.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Lima, seconded by Mr. Hayes. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and so any opposed, any abstentions? Great, motion carries. And then we'll go back to the items that were removed. And so the first one is item C, number 3, the executive session minutes of January 23rd. So can I get a motion for that item? Okay, moved by Ms. Lima. Can I get a second? Okay, seconded from Mr. Bridey. Discussion? We're going to, well, I had them separate because I wasn't sure if they...
I just wasn't at the meeting.
Okay, sure. And so would the person that made that motion be willing to withdraw it so that we can do just one vote on this item? Perfect. Okay, so we're going to withdraw that first motion. And so we can treat number 3 and 4 together. And so can I get a new motion to do so? Okay, so we'll have a motion to approve those two by Ms. Lima. Second, please, from Mr. Bridey. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, abstention from Ms. Hotchkins. Thank you. And so those are all set. And then the next item that was taken out was the personnel item, item 1. So the approval of non-renewals. And based on a need for additional item, we'll be tabling those items, and so no action right now, and we will do that at a future meeting. Okay, and so that moves us to the end of the consent agenda, and so we'll move on to unfinished business. The first item on the agenda is item A, actuarial service bid based on the town of North Kingstown's bid, and so this was an item that had previously come before the committee, and we were able to get some additional items, and so do I have a motion on this item?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion from Mr. Case. Do we have a second? Second from Ms. Lima. Discussion on this item? I'm not sure if either of you want to give any context to the information that was presented to the committee.
So the motion is to piggyback with the town bid.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, perfect. So just for clarification, the actuarial services sometimes have been bidded on and gotten by the town and the schools. This would be to piggyback onto the bid that the town had already done, which would save some administrative time and energy and possibly some savings, which was the reason that we had asked for some additional information, was to understand the financial impact for the schools. And so the committee was provided with that information. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, I would just like to add thank you for the town for providing the additional information to allow us to make an educated decision on this. And so we have a motion and a second on the table, and so I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the NESDEC superintendent search. And so as we had stated at our last meeting, we are very excited to be kicking off the official search and are working with NESDEC on this. And so can I get a motion to discuss this item as we do not need to take any action today on it? Okay, motion from Mr. Bridey and a second from Ms. Lima. And so as far as what we do need to discuss today, I did want to provide an update to the committee and the community, letting folks know that to honor the past committee's statement of making sure to invite the committee back that had previously worked on this, we did reach out to the folks that were on the previous screening committee to garner their interest and availability of continuing on with the search. And when we did correspond with them on that item, I made sure to provide what the scope was again, but also the draft timeline that had been presented to us, so they kind of understood what our goals were as far as where their responsibilities would lie and the timing for such. I also did indicate that regardless of whether or not they're able to join, that the committee would be interested in hearing any feedback they had of the process, as we want to make sure to learn from what we did last time and make sure to consider those comments as well. So I made sure to communicate that also. Additionally, today you have attachments in your packet, and there is a couple of decisions that we need to make as far as information we want to get back to the search firm, and one of those is the letter that is in the packet, as well as, that would go out with the information. And so at this point, I'd like to ask the committee if they have any additions, questions, et cetera, regarding the letter that had previously been used, and that we can communicate with the committee. And I'll give folks a second to pull it up, et cetera, as this is important that we move forward and are able to get some information back to the search firm. So any discussion, thoughts, or if it stands as such, giving us a sense of the fact that the committee is comfortable and good with the language that's in the letter would be appreciated.
I think they spent a lot of time putting that letter together, and a lot of focus groups went into it, so I would be fine with just presenting it.
Okay, thank you so much. So I couldn't tell if your mic was on, but you were saying that a lot of energy and effort went into that original letter, and a lot of focus groups, et cetera, in that process of the search. So thank you for that comment. Other thoughts, questions, et cetera, regarding the letter or any other information for the search?
I guess my only question would be if the original committee members are not able to make the commitment this time for the next go-around, what's the process to fill those spots?
Yeah, thank you so much. So the question, just to make sure I was hearing it clearly, if folks are unable or have left the district, et cetera, and aren't able to fill those spots, what would happen next? And so my recommendation would be, I believe that some of the roles for the search were deemed by building or et cetera, making sure that we had really good representation of the district on the committee. And so, for example, if the person that was representing middle school buildings is no longer able to return, my recommendation would be to have the same process for how that person was identified redone. And I believe that they had gone to the PTOs and asked for recommendations. And then if there were multiple people, I believe they pulled out of a hat. Ms. Hoskins, maybe you know a little more of that. No, great. So we can try to find out some further documentation, but that's my understanding of it. And I believe, it sounded from what I was briefed on as far as the information that was a pretty fair and just process, but I can make sure to confirm that and communicate that to the committee.
I also think we should just wait and see who isn't coming and then sort of fill that role. So if it was a CLAC parent that isn't wanting or able to submit on the committee, or we had our director of special ed, so maybe ask the interim director now of special ed, to be on it, and just kind of fill the roles of who's not able to come back.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. And so definitely we'll be able to communicate back to the school committee on, who was able to or not able to come back. And also no worries and thanks, very much thanks to the folks that went through the process with us, not being able to return to the committee. There's lots of factors for that. And it's definitely not, I'm sure, due to commitment to the town. And so I believe I gave the folks till Friday to let us know, and so we'll be able to give a future update, which won't affect the timeline as far as that. And then if we have any clarifying questions regarding, the process for selecting those folks based on the roles, et cetera, we'll make sure to get the prior minutes pulled or conversations that happened at the school committee so that we follow the same process for that part. Any other questions, thoughts, things that we want communicated to the search firm? We have requested their presence at our next meeting, both to answer questions and also kind of walk the committee through the process as we get going. And so if there's anything that you want pre-communicated to them, please feel free to share during discussion. Okay. Everyone good? Okay, so hearing no discussion, again, this was not an action item, just on for discussion at this point, and so we'll be able to provide additional information and updates regarding the process, the search, timeline, and also the screening committee and vacant roles at a future meeting, and also, as I mentioned, requested the search firm to come down so that we can directly work with them on making sure that we have a successful process. And the timeline that we're hoping to achieve is to have, a really successful search that will garner a candidate that would be able to start approximately around the new fiscal year, the July 1 date, which we believe makes sense both fiscally but also really with the timeline for the schools. We want to get somebody on board to make sure that they're, getting ready to go and working with the building administrators, et cetera, for the start of school. Okay, thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is item C, necessity of school building application and process. I believe this is also for discussion only at this point, and so can I get a motion just to open it up as it is under new business? So moved. Okay, motion from Mr. Case and a second from Ms. Lima, and so we'll open it up for discussion, and I will turn it over to, I believe, Mr. Waterman first for kind of an explanation of where we are in this process and then some future guidance on decisions that will be made by the school committee.
Thank you. In your packets this evening, you will find the guidance surrounding stage 1 and stage 2 submittal for the necessity of school construction. You'll also find the NK Facilities Master Plan that was completed last June and presented to the previous school committee at that time. I'm happy to report that as of lunchtime today, I've received all the documents that I have needed from our architects, which includes the revised CIP plan. Now, I have not had a chance to dive into it, but I have now received everything and fully anticipate that we will be able to hit the stage 1 submittal deadline of next Wednesday. With that in mind, we will need to have a meeting between now or prior to next Wednesday for you to review the stage 1 application and approve it, as it does require the signatures of the school committee chair, the superintendent, and the town manager. I'm confident that by the end of this week I can have a draft fully completed, so I'd be looking for a meeting on Monday or Tuesday for a complete submission of stage 1.
Okay, so thank you so much for that explanation and those documents. Further discussion from the committee regarding this item? Just one comment I wanted to make, both for making sure the committee understands and then also the community. So when we are talking about the necessity of school building application, just wanting to make sure that everyone understands that the urgency and the great opportunity that our town has is part of this process is a higher reimbursement rate than we normally would for school building construction, et cetera. And so there definitely is a time urgency on this, and we want to, go forward and work on this because it could actually have huge savings for the community in North Kingstown and also give us an opportunity to either construct a new school or make some significant improvements to other schools. And so that's where the facilities master plan comes in, is the past school committee had someone go through and give those options to the school committee on their recommendations based on the current plan, and also had gotten community involvement and thoughts on different processes. And so that was presented to the school committee in June, and so that is available for folks to look through. And then this stage 1 and stage 2 are very important as their timeline deadlines. And so as Mr. Waterman mentioned, February 15th is for the stage 1, and then September 15th is stage 2. But in addition to these application processes being put forward, we also as a committee will have to make a lot of decisions regarding what we think is the best path forward for the town as far as the buildings that we need to make sure that we're providing great educations to the students of North Kingstown, and also we'll need to work with the town as this will be something that we'll need a bond for. So although we have great opportunities for reimbursement, we also will need to work with the town on funding. And some of those conversations started at a prior meeting, as we heard at the building committee, but we'll need to continue those conversations. And last night at the town council meeting, they did talk about this a bit as they were hearing from the Asset Management Commission. And so the Asset Management Group is aware of the timeline as well as the town council. And so we look forward to working with them and the town manager as we try to kind of figure out, how to move quickly and successfully through this plan to hopefully get the maximum reimbursement for a probably much needed school or some significant renovations, depending on the direction that we want to go in. And so just wanted to make sure that the whole committee, as well as the community, kind of understands the urgency and great benefit of this opportunity, because we definitely want to make some decisions and move forward. Any further discussion on this item or questions for Mr. Waterman? Frank, anything that you want to add? Perfect. Okay, hearing no further discussion. One thing that on this item, and if the clerks can help me out, I heard Mr. Waterman say that we need to meet before February 15th, and so procedurally, Andrew, question as far as under this item, are we able to amend this motion to approve a meeting to do that, or is that something that we have to do offline because of the agenda?
Just one moment.
So right now it's under as the necessity of school building application / process.
But I believe that's listed as a potential action.
Yeah, it's under for discussion or possible action. So the possible action that we
could set a new date.
Yeah.
Set a new date. Yep.
So I need a motion to set a meeting so that we are able to see the plan that we need to approve that is due on February 15th. And so as Mr. Waterman mentioned, likely those dates would be the Monday or the Tuesday. And so if somebody on the committee wants to make a motion, perhaps selecting a date, we could always amend that as we have discussion. But I do need a motion for that.
I make a motion that we set a meeting down for Monday, February 13th.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second for a meeting on February 13th with the purpose of, with one of the agenda items being to approve the stage 1 application. Further discussion regarding that date? We will also need to establish a time for said meeting, unless it's assumed, are all our meetings at 7 usually? Yeah, so we'll set time. You want to withdraw your motion?
I withdraw the motion.
Okay, we're going to withdraw that motion and we will try again. And so can we get a motion for a proposed meeting?
I make a motion that we have a meeting at 7 p.m. on Monday, February 13th.
Okay.
To review and approve the stage 1 application.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Discussion regarding a meeting on February 13th at 7 p.m. Just looking at the calendar. Location. Yes, we will absolutely work with the clerks to find a location and make sure that the information is posted appropriately so that the community members are aware.
We'd most likely be at Romano Vineyard Way as the musical will have the space.
Yes, yes, wonderful. So it sounds like likely the meeting would be held at the administration building, but again, we'll confirm that and make sure to post it so that folks know where the meeting will be held.
And that building does not have the same time restrictions this one has, so I know we have had meetings at that building earlier, if that's more convenient to the committee.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So hearing that information, does the committee want to have availability on the 13th for this meeting, and then also have any preference regarding the time, as it sounds like we, as Mr. Waterman stated, we could get in there a little earlier as needed. There would be an executive session connected with this meeting as well, so just keep that in consideration as needed. That would be an hour earlier for our gathering.
I can't be at Monday meetings at 5, so unless it's after at 6 or 5:30 or later, I can't.
Okay, perfect. So I think we should probably,
I would keep it at 7.
yeah, we'll stick with that.
If we
Perfect.
have to have executive session.
Yep.
make that
Okay,
tomorrow.
thank you for that. Any further discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed, any abstention, motion carries. Okay, and thank you so much, Mr. Waterman, for that information and the work that you and Dr. Pallotta and the rest of the folks do to prepare that for us. We appreciate it, and I most certainly heard you on the tightness of when you're receiving the information and when we need it back, and appreciate that on behalf of the town and the students. The next item on the agenda is item D, the RST Athletic App Contract. And so can we get a motion on this item, please? Okay, motion to discuss from Ms. Lima. Second from Mr. Case, and then we'll open it up for discussion, and I'll start with Mr. Waterman to provide an update.
Yes, I am very happy. I checked in with the athletic department today, and they expect by the end of the week, all of our teams that are still in session will be using the app. They've worked out the bugs, and they were even able to work out the spring registration as they're starting that. Our major issue was that when students were registered for activities, they were registered using a parent's email address, so they were not able to sign into the app. Our athletic department has been able to resolve that issue. And part of the delay over the past couple weeks to expanding it to the teams was I had to go in and do manual updates to the students. So we expect full implementation in the spring, and the remaining teams who are in season by the end of the week.
Okay, thank you for that update. Further discussion on this item?
Just like to say thank you to all the IT staff and the people that have been working on this. I think, all year. But I think it's an important thing that we finally get underway, and so very appreciated all the work that's gone into that.
Okay, further discussion? And so I know Ms. Lima made a motion for discussion only on this one, but reading it, there was a contract piece of it, and so I do believe that we need to amend the motion if we did want to approve the contract, and if anyone has any questions regarding that. Is it approved? Okay.
I believe the action was if we were going to take action because they were not fulfilling their
To disapprove the
obligation.
contract, understood.
But they have not billed us until it's fully implemented.
Perfect. Yes, thank you so much for that clarification. And so that does not need action, so that is excellent. The only thing that I would add to the discussion is I appreciate the work to make sure that we are able to move smoothly forward. Is there any communication that perhaps could go out regarding anything that parents or students need to do to make sure that that issue doesn't occur again, and or just to make sure that folks are aware of the purpose of the app, as it has been quite a long time since we talked about it last. I know the intent is to make sure that we're having communication through the app between coaches and the students. And so I want to make sure that that is being, one, communicated to students and their families, but also making sure that our new athletic director understands the extent of what we expect, as well as the coaches.
Yes, I can speak with the athletic department, and I do know that I was at one of the fall meetings. I was unable to attend any of the winter meetings, but I know that the previous athletic director had talked about it at the parents, athletes preseason meeting. Also, as part of introducing this to all of our coaches, our assistant athletic director, Sean, is actually in with the teams discussing it with them. So, yes, I will reaffirm to the athletic department to do some widespread communications on that.
Okay, perfect. And just to the beginning part of that question, is there anything that parents or students need to know to prevent this from happening, or is this something that won't happen, again, because of the way that we're going to enter email addresses?
Sean had indicated to me that they had fixed it as part of the registration process.
Perfect, thank you. Any other discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the equity audit report overview. And so can I get a motion to discuss this item? Okay, moved by Ms. Lima, seconded by Mr. Case. Thank you, and we'll open up for discussion. And so as Chair, I just wanted to take a moment and thank the DEI subcommittee for making this recommendation and the work of that committee as well as the company that we worked with in putting forward the information. We obviously came on kind of towards the end of the process, but definitely a lot of work and a lot of time, both from the folks that participated and took the surveys as well as those who developed it, is greatly appreciated. And so I wanted to just make sure that the community as well as the committee is aware of where to find the information to be able to review the audit. And so thanks to the IT staff for working to update the website. It is on the North Kingstown School Department's website under the schools committee section, and there is a specific area for DEI subcommittee. And so all of the information regarding that subcommittee is on that website as far as agendas and meeting minutes and the initial documents for the equity audit. But recently, as of the last time when we released the audit, all of the information is posted there. And so just to review what is on there, there is the final report, which is a full report. We have heard from some community members regarding some questions about the data and different ways that it is presented. And so we are communicating that information to the company. And if it is, in fact, an error, et cetera, we will update the final report and make sure that that information is done. It was very important to the company as well as the subcommittee that the report wasn't kind of worked through from administration, school committee members, et cetera. And so that is why it was presented as such. And then if there is any, factual things that need to be adjusted in it, now that the public has seen it, we'll adjust it and make sure to communicate that as such. Also on that website, we have been offering listening sessions for the equity audit. As this is a community process, we wanted to give the community opportunities to listen. And so thank you to Ms. Lima for hosting the first two. We did one in person here at the high school and one virtually, which was well attended. And so we appreciate those who came and shared their opinion on the audit and ideas and suggestions. There is also one more coming up as well on February 8th at Davisville Middle School. We tried to strategically place them on the opposite sides of town to try to help accommodate folks. And then also on the website, we have the equity audit FAQs that hopefully answer some questions, and also a summary of the key findings, as well as support resources for folks that might need them. So just wanted to make sure that the community and the committee were aware of all of the resources and different information provided along with the final report. And so wanted to kind of just put that out there as far as the information, and then can open it up for further discussion from the committee. Okay, Ms. Lima?
Thank you for sharing that. I had a couple things that I wanted to say about this. Bear with me 1 second. Of course, I can't find it now. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. Okay, so I want to thank the community members who came to the equity audit listening sessions this past week. I appreciated the discussion, the suggestions, and also the disagreements. As somebody said at the first one, we all need to be part of this conversation around how to move forward with the recommendations. Differing viewpoints bring value and should be welcomed, not discouraged. There's going to be another one tomorrow night at Davisville Middle School, like was just mentioned. It's at 6 o'clock in the cafeteria, and I encourage everyone to attend. The school committee plans to work with the administration to formulate an implementable action plan, which will include staffing, communication, and professional development. But as the chair of the DEI subcommittee, I wanted to speak to some of the specifics within the audit itself. PCG felt it was important to note that a key component of their approach to collecting and analyzing qualitative data is the consideration of onlyness as it relates to equity. Onlyness is when a student from an underrepresented group is one or one of a few in a class. As such, experiences may be singular in nature, but are nonetheless valid and require further investigation. The inclusion of individual experiences supports the goal of this equity audit in ensuring each student receives equitable opportunities for successful outcomes. They also noted that today's school and district leaders must have the ability and willingness to facilitate courageous conversations about change and to clearly explain the combination of new supports and expectations that will be in place to support that change. They also must maintain the resolve to hold steady and remain focused on implementing and monitoring the chosen strategies despite pushback and discomfort. Effectively leading significant change focused on equity means accomplishing stated goals despite opposition, inside and outside the school district. It's important for district leaders to recognize which groups might feel a loss of power or influence if changes focused on equity occur, and minimize their opposition by creating an inclusive process where all voices are heard. You know, I've read this audit multiple times since it's been put out, and each time I find something different that stands out. I'm hearing a lot of questions about whether the number of survey response participants is statistically valid, and wanting to know why we would consider changing district-wide policies when not all students are affected, or comments about how the audit confirms that males in our districts are lagging behind. What I'm not hearing as much of are questions about why student-requested initiatives are being denied by administration due to fear of parental pushback, or asking what we're going to do about the students who are experiencing bias-based bullying, or wondering how it's possible that the report is only reliable evidence of inequities towards certain groups, but not others. Mostly, what I really want to know is how anyone can look at the discipline data and not believe that the policies, practices, and procedures in our system are creating and reinforcing inequitable practices, and not demanding to know our plan to fix it. Dr. Martin Luther King said, "All this is simply to say that all life is interrelated. We're caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. As long as there's poverty in this world, no man can be totally rich, even if he has $1 billion. As long as diseases are rampant and millions of people cannot expect to live more than 20 or 30 years, no man can be totally healthy, even if he just got a clean bill of health from the finest clinic in America. Strangely enough, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. You can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be." The issues that have been outlined in the equity audit that need to be addressed are not a you issue. They're not a me issue. They're a North Kingstown School Department issue. They're a community issue. Changing culture is a journey, and we need to navigate this together. There are thousands of kids in this district currently, and thousands more still to come. Imagine what a difference we can make for them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Further discussion regarding the equity audit from the committee?
I think my only question is the DEI subcommittee going to take it and review it and have discussions about
Yes,
it?
at our meeting on the 15th.
Yep, so the question...
and then are they going to then propose to the school committee their suggestions?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to review it.
Is the administration going to look at it? I know you said some people had questions about the data and some of the possible inaccuracies, and Pete, you said...
Yeah, so just to clarify a couple...
Can you clarify that?
Yeah, So what I'm hearing is Ms. Hoskins asked a clarifying questioning about the DEI subcommittee. And so the purpose of the DEI subcommittee is to, make recommendations to the school committee on action. And so I imagine, I know they have the meeting coming up. And so Ms. Lima and I have been, voted to sit on that committee with them. And so we'll be having conversations in that agenda. We'll most certainly include this, and then, based on their conversations, recommendations can most certainly come up. I also would encourage, all of the committee members to read it, because that is one way that we could have action, and we definitely want that committee's participation, but it's not the only way. And so any committee member, we can put things on the agenda to move forward, look at, et cetera, based on it. And then, also with the data, it's not that there's inaccurate data or anything like that, but a couple folks were asking, some clarifying questions regarding how things were presented in tables and different things like that. And so what I was encouraging folks is that they do notice that, because we didn't see it in depth in advance, to fact check every line, different things, to feel free to share information like that. And we're happy to connect with PCG for clarification. And if there is anything that is found to be wrong, we will most certainly update it and share that information with the community. I don't believe that that's the case, but if, I want to make sure to check with the company that did it, as we don't have the raw data to verify things.
And will the administration look at that raw data, or look at that as well to just confer that with the information you're getting from the company?
Yep. So, Ms. Lima, do you want to answer a little bit about the process?
The data for the report was pulled from, there's a table in the report that shows where they got all the information. It was pulled from multiple sources, including the RIDE website information publicly available, and then information that was not publicly available was submitted from the district. So, it's been reviewed, but if somebody looks at that, there was actually one thing that there was a typo somebody caught that said like middle school and elementary, and it should have said high school. Like, it was in a bunch of statistics, so that was caught. We fixed that. So far, somebody asked a question today about where the graduation rates came from. There's a footnote in the report where it came from. I looked to find a specific thing on the website. I couldn't find that. I've asked PTG to actually show me the link. So things like that. So the data's in publicly verifiable places, and if somebody has a specific question about where to find it, I'm happy to point them to it.
Okay, thank you for that explanation and that question regarding that. Other discussion regarding the equity audit? I think for myself, just to talk about it, I think I most certainly heard both. I was able to attend the listening session yesterday, and then also from some of the comments today, something I think important when you do an audit like this or any sort of assessment, one is to most certainly remember the people that are in your district, all the people, and how, on paper it's very easy to talk about statistics and different things, but these are our children and our classmates and our friends and our teachers, and so making sure to center that and remember, why we're doing something like this, and also the importance of taking some actions. I definitely heard today that call for immediate action and a plan. And so I look forward to hearing what the DEI subcommittee recommends, further listening with the community about priorities, et cetera. This work is not going to be immediate or overnight, but we most certainly can make some progress, because there's definitely, as outlined in the audit, progress that needs to be made. And I also most certainly encourage and look forward to conversations with the administration about, with those recommendations, what supports and needs would be put into place, and then what that would mean from a strategic standpoint as far as we're looking forward, because obviously recommendations sometimes have costs and different things, and we want to make sure to do it in a thoughtful manner that will allow us to make progress. So I think it's a great kind of baseline as far as what we're working with, and again, looking forward to hearing recommendations and start making some immediate actions and long-term plans on ways that we can make some movements to make sure that we're being equitable to all students in the district. Any further discussion on this topic at this point? Okay, and again, thank you so much to Ms. Lima, the past school committee for approving this and putting this forward, as well as the DEI subcommittee and all those that participated, gave data, et cetera, to make it possible. Ms. Sapala for serving in that capacity to kind of help us finish up and verify some data from the administrative side. So thank you to all who supported. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the policy subcommittee. And so I'll make a motion to approve the document that is provided in your packets. This is the second review. Do I have a second? Okay, second from Ms. Lima. And we'll open this up for discussion. Again, as a reminder from last week, when I assumed the role of school committee chair, I looked through the documentations for the district on who should be on the subcommittee. The school committee has a policy that outlines how policies can be created, et cetera, but did not specifically address this part of the process, and I felt like it was important for transparency to have this outlined. And so looking at other districts, et cetera, and best practices, drafted the initial document that you all were presented with at the last meeting, and then hearing feedback, et cetera, and also fixing one typo, made some revisions, which you can see highlighted in yellow on the document, with the hopes to be able to move this forward, which would allow us to officially start convening the policy subcommittee, and as outlined in that, making sure that we are hearing community voice and offering opportunities for the public to come and speak to different policies, as well as having the superintendent have the ability to bring in different members of the administration depending on what was being talked about, to make sure that we have expertise and voice on different policies. And so any further discussion on the document presented? Yep, Mr. Bridie.
I really appreciate the work that you've done to try to come up with a kind of a template for how you're going to address policy committee issues. As a co-chair of the wellness subcommittee, I learned this week that we have 15 members on that committee. They are a broad spectrum of our community, including teachers, nurses, and various members of the community. I know that there's at least one member of that subcommittee here. Going forward, there was, well, let me start by going backward. We had a health curriculum forum on Thursday night where a number of people expressed interest in joining that committee. I appreciate what you've done here because I think that helps to provide some guidance going forward for how we're going to deal with adding or maintaining the members of that committee. And I just appreciate the fact that you've done that.
Yeah, thank you so much. And so the thing that this document allows is for us to be able to convene the policy subcommittee. And then if you look at the policy that we currently have, which is BGA SC policy development, which is on our website, that outlines, the different ways that a policy can be brought forward to that subcommittee for consideration and work through, which will then be presented to the school committee. And so, again, the policy that the subcommittee that we're considering right now is advisory, and they were the ones that really will workshop, hear from the community, et cetera, make tweaks and changes and recommendations. But going off of what you were saying, Tom, one of the items under our different policies is BCF, which is the advisory committees and liaisons and whatnot. And so definitely looking at that, I think, will help give some clarity about membership on subcommittees, term limits, how folks can get on, et cetera. And I'm also hearing a need for giving community members opportunities to be part of the process, maybe beyond official memberships on committees, but giving opportunities for folks to be able to contribute their expertise and talents as well. And so that's something else that we as a committee can look at, in addition to perhaps tweaking the language and providing some additional clarity as far as who can be on committees, how they can join, what that process is, who makes the decisions, et cetera. Any other comments or discussion regarding the item that's on right now? Any further thoughts? Okay, hearing no other discussion, I'll call the vote. And so all those in favor of approving the policy subcommittee document as presented, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Thank you so much. And we will work with the clerks to determine a time for the policy subcommittee to convene, and we'll make sure that that is posted and that the agendas as well are posted so that the community knows what will be discussed at the meetings. Those meetings, in accordance to the Open Meeting Acts, will be open, and so folks are welcome to attend. The next item on the agenda is G, the 2022-2023 school budget. Any items of discussion there?
I just know that being in the budget season, when we're going to get some of the reports, the Munis reports for FY 2022 and up to now in 2023, so we can actually start looking at the information and be prepared for the budget meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm hearing Ms. Hoskins request the information from Munis, the Munis reports of kind of the last fiscal year so that we have a good understanding going into budget cycle, kind of where we ended. Am I hearing you correctly on that?
And where we are now up to year to date.
Yep, and for year-to-date information. And so anyone from the administration want to comment on that, or you can just take that recommendation and then we could perhaps have some information for a future meeting?
The Finance Department is currently working on that information to try to get you the information in terms of actuals versus the budget. So we should have that shortly. We're planning to have that hopefully by maybe around February 20th in that area, because they're also working on the 23-24 budget. And I'll speak to that when we get to 23-24.
Okay, thank you. And I did hear yesterday, and I'll make sure to get this information officially to folks, but at the town council meeting, there was some information provided to the town council regarding kind of the general overall town budget, but some of the things were noted for the school committee's budget as well, as that's obviously part of that. And so I'll make sure to get that information through the clerks to the committee, because there was some information presented there. I do know that they did mention yesterday that particularly the ESSER funds were getting verified. They were kind of running some tests on that information, and that was part of that process. And so even the information presented to the town yesterday, I don't believe was final because of that piece, which obviously affects the schools. And so I do believe that they felt like they were wrapping that testing up shortly as well. So thank you for that request, Jenny, because I do agree that that's helpful information to have going forward when thinking about the budgets. And so thank you for the Finance Department. I'm working on providing the actuals and then some of the information that we'll need to be able to make some decisions about our next budget. So any other discussion on item G? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item H, which is the 2023-2024 school budget. I know Dr. Pilata has some comment on that regarding that one, but any other discussion or questions from the committee regarding that? Yep, Mr. Case?
I know last time we had talked about kind of a timeline for that. Has there been any update after conversations with the town manager and the town about where our timeline needs to go now?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes.
So go ahead, Dr. Pilata.
We plan to present the 23-24 budget to the school committee on February 27th. Moving on from the 27th, you'll have the budget to review. We'll set up a school committee meeting on March 8th for a workshop with the budget, and also set up a meeting on March 15th for the school committee to take a vote on the budget to pass it along to the town council.
Okay. Mr. Waterman, or, yeah.
I believe the meeting might be March 9th.
Okay, just for clarification, no worries, because we had to move a couple of things around. And so just to clarify, February 27th, it'll be presented to the committee, workshop on March 9th, not March 8th, and then March 15th for a vote by the school committee. Additional questions, discussions, or questions regarding the 2023-2024 budget? Okay, and just a quick clarifying question. I did note at the town council meeting last night, they did adjust some of their meeting dates So just wanted to make sure that we had some information there, making sure that the decisions and changes they made yesterday align with ours, as well as making sure that we are able to provide the information as time allows. I do know the town charter allows for a request for a 2-week extension, so I don't know if we officially had asked for that or need to ask for that, but just wanted to bring that up as I know that's part of the stipulations in the budget conversations that could happen. Yeah, Mr. Waterman?
I just want to clarify the date, because I also had March 8th written down in my calendar.
I said March 8th yesterday, but I just saw the agenda. I thought originally...
Sorry, Ms. Pollack, could you have a microphone, please?
We had talked about the 8th, but there was a holiday on the 8th, so we switched it to the 9th.
And so I was in error when I said March 8th yesterday because I had forgotten that conversation. What went forward on the schedule for your meetings is March 9th.
And then the following week, what?
15th.
Which is a Wednesday?
Yes.
So it's March 9th is a Thursday.
Right.
March 15th is a Wednesday.
Okay. I won't be at the March 15th meeting.
And that's your vote for the budget.
Unless it's an 8 p.m. meeting, I won't be there.
Okay, so it sounds like we need some, and I would very much like all the committee members to be at that budget vote. And so we do have some time as needed to adjust it. And like I said, I do want to check with what the town council did. I noted that they changed some of their meeting schedules, but I did not catch exactly what it was changed to and how it might affect what we're doing. And so somehow here we are talking about calendars again, but we'll make sure to clarify and then very much make sure that the community knows that. And I think the biggest thing to really reassure and work through is although the timeline is challenging and difficult with the school budget, we want to present a really well thought out budget to make sure that we are conveying the needs of the school department and what we need going forward to make sure that we are continuing to provide a great education to students. And so there are a lot of different things going on right now as far as conversations, as we heard earlier, the necessity of school buildings, et cetera, that are involved in the conversations regarding finances, et cetera. And so appreciate all the work that's being done by the different departments to make sure that we have that, as well as the folks in the buildings who communicated their thoughts and needs as well. Ms. Sapala, do you want to add?
So, Madam Chair, if you recall, we made so many changes to your calendar at that last meeting, so I can understand why there might have been a confusion. We were trying to be respectful of holidays. We were looking at our attorney's availability. We were trying to change our dates, and we were trying to get the budget to comport with the town. So that's why I recommended the 15th, because there's supposed to be a workshop on the 16th, and it's to my understanding, a sit down and work together, school department and town, and it's during the work day. So it's not a special meeting as much as it's a work session. So I suggested the 15th so that it would comport with the 16th. Perhaps that's changed, as the chair mentioned, and so maybe we need to check all of that to make it more possible for you to be there.
Great, thank you so much. And I did write down at the town council meeting last night a March 13th date, and then they had mentioned department heads on March 20th and their public hearing on April 17th. So I assume that March 13th is the workshop that you're referencing. So we'll check on that. And since we're having a meeting next week, we will be able to put revised calendar and clarification on there. We'll take into consideration the conflicts and also making sure that we have the timeline correct, that we're able to deliver a really well thought out, researched and worked through budget and make sure that we hit the timelines that we need to allow the town council to do their work. So appreciate the conversation and we'll make sure to communicate any changes in the final schedule to folks as the budget is a really essential and important piece of the work that we're doing. So thank you for that. Any further questions or discussion on the 23-24 school budget? Okay, thank you. And so the next item on the agenda is the CIP existing bond or future bond. And so I believe we heard a little bit of an update there, but is there anything further, Mr. Waterman, on item I?
There's nothing additional other than we did receive the sheets for each school today.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Any questions from the committee regarding that? Okay, we look forward to that information. And in addition to receiving the stage 1 document, if we could also receive the document that you received today in the next packet, that would be appreciated as well.
It will still be in draft form as this work that we now need. Now that we have it from them, we have to align our priorities to the RIDE priorities. And right now, my focus is going to be on hitting that stage 1. So what you will receive will not be the final SIP plan. It'll be as we received it today.
Yeah, that sounds fine. And so we can definitely note draft or whatever makes most sense. And we completely understand the coinciding and the priority with the necessity of school building application. So no worries on that, but appreciate anything that we can see as far as making informed decisions. So thank you. The next, so we'll move on from unfinished business to new business. And so the first item on there is discussion and action regarding interim assistant superintendent. And so just as a reminder to the committee, we only are approving the contract. The decision of appointment lies with the interim superintendent. And so I'll make a motion to approve the interim assistant superintendent contract. Do I have a second? Second from Ms. Lima, and we'll open up for a discussion, and I'll start with Dr. Pilata for some context on this one.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank Mrs. Sapala for her work in the district over the last several months. She's kept the district moving forward, and I certainly appreciate that, and I appreciate the transition that you provided to me. So thank you for your service to North Kingstown School District. With that, we have a plan in place. We have contacted Mr. Bob Mitchell, who's a retired superintendent currently from Cumberland. I had a meeting with Mrs. Sapala and Mr. Mitchell to transition Mrs. Sapala's work to Mr. Mitchell. Mrs. Sapala's last day, I believe, is February 13th, 14th is her last day. Mr. Mitchell will come on board with your approval of that contract effective on February 13th, which is next Monday. Mr. Mitchell is very familiar with the operation and the responsibilities of an assistant superintendent. I believe he was also the assistant superintendent in Cumberland before he became superintendent in Cumberland. So he'll provide a great resource to us. Final interviews for the permanent superintendent will take place on February 9th. There are 3 finalists for that.
Just to clarify, assistant superintendent, sorry.
What did I say?
Yeah, superintendent. I wish that was the final interviews, but.
Assistant superintendent. Final interviews for assistant superintendent, February 9th. We have 3 final candidates. Those interviews will take place at the school department. There'll be a selection. We're not sure when the selected individual would be able to start. That would depend on who gets selected. So we do have a solid plan in place to keep the assistant superintendent position moving forward and all the work that needs to be done under that department. At this time, I would just ask for your approval to approve that contract so we can move forward with Mr. Mitchell effective February 13th.
Thank you so much for that context on that, and thank you for Mr. Mitchell for being willing to join us, and of course, as I said earlier, Ms. Sapala for the great work that she's done. I did just want to make a clarifying comment. We are not, Ms. Sapala is not leaving because of any circumstances other than regulations, and so I think as I informed the committee before, with retired administrators, there's a 90-day stipulation as far as service. Beyond that, and that's where the dates are coming in as far as what we're hitting. We are working with some folks up at the state to try to adjust that timeline at least till the end of the school year. That would benefit not just North Kingstown, but further districts in the state. And so that has not gone into effect or even, I believe, had a hearing at this point, but definitely something that I think would benefit all school districts, and most certainly North Kingstown, is the ability to have really seasoned, amazing professionals like Ms. Sapala be able to continue their service if they're willing, at least for the remainder of the school year, to not have disruptions. And so appreciate the folks that are working on that up at the State House, and I'm hopeful for it to pass, but just wanted to make sure to clarify why that departure and why this transition, but very excited and grateful that we have Mr. Mitchell coming in to provide some consistency as we wrap up that final search. Any further discussion or questions on this item? Okay, hearing none, we'll call the vote for the contract approval. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you so much. The next item up for discussion and action is the Forest Park Elementary principal contract. And so can we get a motion for that, please? Okay, so moved by Mrs. Hoskins and a second from Mr. Case, and we'll go over to Dr. Pallotta again for this item. I'm sorry, excuse me, we're going to actually have Ms. Sapala speak to this item. So
I'm very happy to have a contract in front of you this evening for the new principal of Forest Park. I'd like to introduce well, he's not here, but I'd like to introduce his resume to you and his background to you. Mr. Joseph Rotes is our recommendation for principal of Forest Park School. Joseph lives in Warwick, nearby. He's a 22-year employee of the Cranston Schools. He's been principal of Chester Barrows Elementary School, Parkview Middle School, and is currently the principal of Edgewood Highland School in Cranston. In addition, he has the advantage of having also worked at central office for 9 years of his time. So there are 60 school administrators in Cranston, a very, very large school district. And he was tapped to work on accountability, assessment, school improvement, grants for a period of 9 years, and did that until last year when he asked to go back to a building. And so the interest in Forest Park is because it's an elementary building where his heart is and close to his home as well. And we are very pleased to have a seasoned administrator join our staff who comes with very strong recommendations.
Okay, thank you so much for that context as well as the background information on the individual and those who sat on that committee and helped you with that process, as well as you for leading that process. And so any further discussion from the committee regarding this contract? Ms. Sabala, did you have? Oop, thank you.
His start date would be February 27th, right after the vacation break.
Wonderful, thank you. And thank you for the substitutes that have been filling in as well. I know that there's some very dedicated, retired folks that are helping us out in that way as well. So thank you for their time and energy at that school. And so any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. We'll call the vote. So all those in favor of approving the Forest Park Elementary principal contract, please say aye. Aye. Okay. No, any opposed, any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you so much. I can go home now because William said that I had to approve that, or had to come home with an answer. So I told him I had no inside information by any means. So he'll be pleased to hear that someone's joining on February 27th. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the discussion/action of the safe storage resolution. Can we get a motion on this item?
I'm going to make a motion, but I'm going to make a motion with an amendment. Can I do that?
Yes. So we are going to make a motion with an amendment. Andrew, do you want to walk Ms. Lima through that to make sure that we do it correctly?
Sure, I think we should put down just initially a motion to approve, and then a motion to amend on top of that.
Yep.
Then there'll be a vote on the motion to amend and a vote on the motion as amended.
Okay, so as we posted the agenda and the attachments, we'll make that motion. And then we'll get, if you have a second, then we can open it up for discussion, and then perhaps explain the amendment that you'd like to make. And then we could entertain a motion to make that amendment. We'll change that language. We'll vote on the language change, and then we can go back to the original motion. It's okay, I got it, to approve it. And so first we'll need just a motion as it is on the agenda for the resolution and the attachment that was as such.
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, so we have a motion from Ms. Lima. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Case. And so we'll open it up to discussion, and I'll start with Ms. Lima.
Okay, so the resolution that I'm proposing today comes from Everytown for Gun Safety's Model Secure Storage Notification Resolution. There's nothing in it that has not been proposed and passed in other districts. I have to say that I was surprised by the misinterpretation and the pushback from people opposed to the part of the resolution requiring a signature that simply acknowledges receipt of a letter that explains the importance of secure gun storage and the legal obligations to protect minors from accessing irresponsibly stored guns. The letter does not ask for information about what weapons are in a house. It's the school district providing information to families, not the other way around. The signature would have been required of all families, regardless of whether or not there are guns in the home. It's not an attempt to create a registry or an inventory of who owns weapons. I do not want the overall intent of the resolution, which is to raise awareness around the existence of and the importance in complying with safe storage laws, to get lost because of that one line. So I'm putting forward an amended version which removes the signatory requirement. So school safety. People may disagree on what the best way is to achieve it, but I hope that most would agree that it is a high priority. After the Robb Elementary shooting, Everytown for Gun Safety, in partnership with the AFT and the NEA, set to work on a plan to keep students safe. Their plan combines school-based intervention strategies with carefully tailored gun safety policies. Their report had 3 goals: to paint a detailed picture of what gun violence in America's schools looks like, to outline a plan to prevent gun violence in schools, and to educate decision makers on practices that can cause harm and traumatize students. It has specific actions that can be taken at the school, town, and state level to accomplish these goals. One of their recommendations is around building a culture of secure gun storage. Only 1 in 3 gun owners living in states with child access prevention laws know that their state requires secure storage of guns. Public awareness is an essential component in making sure that secure gun storage laws work. This resolution may seem symbolic or like virtue signaling to some people, but there are others who may welcome the information. If sending home a letter to all families helps prevent even just one family, one student from being unsafe with guns, then it's worth it. Rhode Island has a safe storage law that requires that firearms be stored locked, unloaded, and separate from ammunition in certain circumstances. A violation of this law that results in a child, which is defined as less than 16 years of age, obtaining access to a weapon and causing injury to themselves or someone else with that firearm can result in a fine of up to $1,000 and/or 1 year in prison. Everytown for Gun Safety has a Be Smart campaign that raises awareness that secure gun storage can save children's lives. Be Smart emphasizes that it's an adult responsibility to keep kids from accessing guns and that every adult can play a role in keeping kids and communities safer. Since 2019, school districts across the country, including the Los Angeles Unified School District, Tucson Unified School District, and Denver Public Schools and County School District, have passed school board resolutions to require that information be sent home with students to educate parents about the importance of securely storing any firearms they own. Locally, Barrington introduced a resolution in February of 2022, which later became a policy in July of 2022. Here in North Kingstown, we offer resources to parents on a variety of topics that revolve around keeping students safe. We provide education to our families and to the community on things like substance misuse, drunk driving, eating disorders, mental and physical health, and teen safety and dating violence. Why wouldn't we not do the same for gun safety? It doesn't need to be either or. Recognizing that the district has multiple pressing needs that need to be prioritized, I had intended on waiting to introduce a resolution requesting action in this area. But the recent incident with the 6-year-old who shot his teacher in Virginia reminded me that anything that directly impacts student safety should never be held for another day. While that situation points to a multitude of larger societal issues, at the end of the day, it comes down to access to the weapon itself. With that in mind, I'm introducing the attached safe storage resolution with that one amendment, which I hope will have the full support of the committee and the administration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion, and again, with the amended language. So we're having the discussion on the original document and the original motion right now. If someone did want to change language, but first I'd like to just clarify one part of the language. So if we do have to make a change, I don't want to do it twice by any means. And so just wanted to ask a clarifying question to the district's attorney regarding the part at the, kind of towards the end, it's the second to last paragraph. Andrew, do you have a copy of the?
I do. It was the one that was placed on the desk?
Yes,
Yep.
yes. So just a question about kind of with this resolution, if approved as written, where the direction of the creation of the appropriate letter would come from. Right now it very specifically indicates the superintendent, but wasn't sure if that was the most appropriate person in the district and what the kind of like legal piece as far as creating the document would be, and if any Dr. Platter or Mr. Waterman or anyone have any thoughts on that as well. That's a question I'd have.
I mean, it certainly could say that the committee directs the administration to create the appropriate letter. That would allow some latitude and flexibility at Dr. Pilata's level to determine how that goes out.
I would be happy to work with the attorney to put a letter together, because it's probably going to be a lot of legal language in there. I'll have to consult with the attorney to do that. So if you don't mind, I would consult with the attorney to put that letter together.
No, that would be great. There is a proposed draft letter that I can send to you if you want to use that as a starting point.
Thank you.
Okay. And so just consideration if we are going to do amended language, maybe because maybe adding that in as far as the scope in that item of that second to last sentence, because it right now currently just says directs the superintendent, and so want to make sure that there's some latitude to be able to consult with the district attorney as needed. Is what I'm hearing.
So do you want to say
I'll
in
get you 1 second.
consultation with the district attorney?
It can. It certainly doesn't have to. I'd be happy to work with Dr. Pilata to put something together that's legally compliant.
Okay. So it sounds like we're fine as far as that piece of it. Just wanted to make sure that that's part of the discussion. Ms. Austin?
I just wanted to say that North Kingstown School Department by policy is a drug, alcohol, and weapon-free space, honestly. So my thought, I know you want to do a resolution, would be to have a holistic approach and initiate more of an information campaign, letters and handbooks, or that includes vape, legal drugs, alcohol, marijuana, and all weapons.
Mm-hmm.
I know the gun violence, I understand, I know in Los Angeles they did do a signature, and it was just for the receipt of information. It wasn't for anything but that they received the information. But having them sign something, the school district, we wouldn't be able to enforce anything from it. So I feel that if we're going to do something, do it as a holistic, as a bigger, this is more about, it is a policy. Our policies state that we are a drug-free and weapon-free zone, and just not just isolated to guns.
Yeah. So thank you for that comment. And so it sounds like some agreements in the signatory part that Ms. Lima is planning on or that we'll make an amendment to take out. And I do appreciate the feedback that we had from the committee, or the community. We did receive some emails regarding that, and also obviously the folks that came and spoke about that as well. And I wanted to acknowledge that I did hear the part about education, and we'll most certainly convey that to the town as well on opportunities and things that people can do. I made sure to wrote down some of the suggestions that folks had to make sure that there was really good education and awareness around this topic, not just a resolution and a letter that goes out. And so I heard that feedback, and also I know that the committee also heard the feedback about the signatory piece, and I appreciate that there is an option to amend the document as such. And I also hear, Ms. Hoskins, your thoughts about educating and the community and the school community regarding further topics as well.
It's
With
all inclusive, so it's not a resolution about one topic. It's
Okay. So at any point, a committee member can make an amendment to the motion that's on the floor, and so we can do that however you all want. Currently, we're in the discussion for the current one, and so someone would just need to make a motion and get a second to put forward amended language on this document. So any committee member can do that at any time.
So my response to that would be that the policy, the handbook that you sign a receipt of is basically confirming acknowledgement and receipt of all the policies, which covers all of that. This is specifically as part of a multi-layer strategy to reduce gun violence in schools. So it's not really quite the same thing. That's the way I look at it.
Okay. Further discussion on the motion on the floor? Yep, Mr. Case.
I think this is an important thing for us to do. I know, people have said that it's not, but when we have several recent instances of children bringing guns to school, I think that makes it our responsibility to have a say about it. So I think it's important that by doing this, the more we can, I guess, normalize this topic and allow parents, give them the ability to have these discussions with fellow parents, I think that that's an important step in the right direction. And I think that raising awareness specifically about safe gun storage is important, and I think it's something that we should move forward with.
Okay, further discussion on this topic? Yep, Mr. Brady.
I've heard this resolution described this evening, and I respect the lady who spoke in public session is that this is some kind of a political issue. I don't see this as a political issue. This is a public safety issue. I was astounded when I read about what happened in Virginia, that the family of that little boy who brought a gun to school and shot his teacher said, "We're horrified by this. The gun was secured." I can't understand how you could say that the gun was secured when it wound up in the backpack of a 6-year-old child who brought that item to school. And I know there are lots of questions about whether or not school officials did enough to prevent that child from doing what he did. The bottom line is the child was armed. That's insane. We simply can't allow that to happen to whatever extent we have any authority or power here. The power that we have is to make policy, and I think that this is a public safety policy that is designed to prevent, to a limited extent, the wrong people getting access to a firearm. I was amazed when I saw on social media that people were saying they're going to create a registry, we're going to come for your guns. I've seen that from some people who are frequent critics of the administration of the North Kingstown School Department, and it's simply not accurate. I'm going to support this legislation. I've had extensive online email discussions with 2 parents, one of whom I've met, the other one I am familiar with and is very involved in the North Kingstown community. It's been respectful. I think it's been appropriate. I understand that some people feel that this measure goes too far. I think all that it's doing is making people aware that there are safe storage laws. The failure to store a firearm safely could carry legal consequences. I certainly hope that never happens. But I really don't see any harm in educating people and making them aware of these laws. My father was a Marine. He had a firearm in our house until I was born. My mother insisted that he get rid of it. But I always remember an expression that he said, that he had, that no matter how many people you know, no matter how much information you provide, there's always somebody who doesn't get the word. And there may be people out here who simply don't know about these laws. This is an effort to try and make sure that people who send children to our schools know that there are safe storage laws. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I am glad, Jen, that you decided to make this amendment to remove that language, because I think, frankly, people are right. You know, it's not something that we can enforce, but we can try to educate people. And I think that's appropriate. So I support this resolution.
Further discussion? I just wanted to ask a clarifying question to the district attorney. As far as the differential between resolution, a policy, legislation, I just want to be very clear that what's on the motion right now is a safe storage resolution, and so I'm looking for some clarity regarding that versus the difference of that and a policy, just to make sure that the committee's clear as well as the community and everyone.
Sure. With respect to a resolution, this is just that the committee is resolved to essentially, in this particular resolution, to direct the superintendent with my assistants to send out that notice. It doesn't have the impact of a policy that would be necessarily district-wide and applied to families, employees, and staff.
Just to clarify one thing, Andrew, there's a paragraph above where it directs the handbook to be updated as well, so there are 2 specific actions.
Correct, and any such direction by resolve of the committee would be a direction, simply wouldn't be a policy.
So just to clarify and say in non-lawyer talk, a resolution like this is a official recommendation or official request to the district versus something that would be a policy that would have more kind of not weight, but for lack of a better word.
Correct. No, it would have more essential weight.
Yeah.
It would apply to a broader scope of people. This is simply resolving what the committee intends to do and specifying that the superintendent is directed to perform the 2 duties.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any further discussion? And we still don't have a motion to officially change the documents put forward. So if we do want to do that, I would recommend that, and then we would have that motion, have a second, have discussion regarding that language as needed, and then we would vote to approve that and then go back to the entire document. And so just to clarify for the committee, you could technically vote yes, that you agree with the language change, and then vote, for example, no, that you don't want to pass the resolution, or vice versa. The 2 are not mutually tied. So voting yes to the amended language doesn't mean you're voting yes or no to the resolution as stated. Just want to make sure that's clear because it's a little confusing.
So right now we're voting to amend the language.
Not yet. So what we're going to do is, right now we're in the main motion. If someone wants to make an official motion, change or amendment to that motion, I would request and recommend to do that at this point. We need a second on that. Then we can have discussion about the language change, and then we would go back and have if that passes, the official vote on the actual resolution.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to amend the resolution as it was submitted to strike the sentence that says, and requiring a signature acknowledging awareness of secure gun storage responsibilities.
Okay, and so I hear a motion to amend. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, second from Mr. Bridey. So motion, amendment to the language by Ms. Lima, and then a second from Mr. Bridey. Discussion regarding that?
I just think that, again, with removing it, you are just informing, and there's no signature, there's nothing but an informational letter. I think you're going to reach a lot more people.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I, again, appreciate, I just want to comment on this. I appreciate that we heard from the community, and I believe that the way that I read it, the intent was not to make people feel like they were, having to do a registry, et cetera, but that was most certainly the impact, and so I appreciate the amended language. As, again, we want to, make sure that this is the intent of this is to raise awareness and make sure to educate folks that are sending students to the schools. And so I appreciate the community's time to reach out and let us know their feelings, and for those of you who came and stayed for the meeting as well, and then also the amended language, as I think it is going to assist in the goal, which is to educate. Other discussion regarding just the proposed strike-through from Ms. Lima. Yes, Mr. Chase?
I'll ask a question. The sentence fragment that's left, which requires acknowledgement as part of the, and I think that's supposed to be a semicolon, does that need to stay?
No, you're right. That needs to come out
I think
too.
that needs to be added to it.
Yep.
So it's that last sentence, and also adding which requires acknowledgement as part of the semicolon.
Yes.
And then
leave the be
leave
it fine.
and be it
yes,
fine.
yes. Good catch. Thank you. So can I amend my amendment?
No, you can withdraw it, though, and then
Okay. So I'm going to withdraw my amendment.
Okay.
And then I'm going to make a motion to amend it to say, to strike the sentence that says, and requiring a signature acknowledging awareness of secure gun storage responsibilities, which requires acknowledgement as a part of.
Removal of the semicolon.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so just to be, do we have a second for that?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Okay, so just to make sure that we're very clear, because we have English teachers, I think, present in the room, so we want to make sure we don't have inappropriate punctuation. In the second to last paragraph, the amended language is to strike through and requiring a signature acknowledging awareness of secure gun storage responsibilities, as well as removing after the and before the and in that last sentence, the semicolon, so that it's not there. Any further discussion on the amended language motion, or amendment that to the motion? And again, as this vote would just be, by Gabriel, as this vote would just be on this language part, and then we'll go back and we could have further discussion on the total resolution as then changed if approved, and then we can call the vote when we're ready for that piece.
Call the question.
Okay. Okay, so hearing no further discussion, so we're voting on the amended language. All those in favor of changing the amended language, please say aye. Aye. Sorry, yeah, Mr. Case seconded it. Oh, we got it that way. And so, oh, sorry, were you talking about the amended language or the call for the question?
I heard the call for the question.
Yep.
I might have missed a second to Ms. Lima's motion.
Yep, we definitely had the second on that one. Perfect. And so, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? So motion carries unanimously, and that was just the amended language motion. And so now we'll return to the greater motion, and so that is to approve the North Kingstown School Department Safe Storage Resolution with the change of that strike through of the language. And so that is on the table now as amended. Is there any further discussion?
No, I just would like to reiterate that it is for informational purposes. So
Yep, absolutely. So for educational and informational purposes. Thank you for that, Ms. Hoskins. Any other discussion on this? Okay, hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of approving this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. And again, thank you to the community members that reached out, as well as the committee for the conversation regarding this. And we appreciate and look forward to updates from the district administration regarding the resolution. The next item on the agenda is the discussion of the Town Council April 2023 proclamation. And so can we get a motion for item D? Okay, motion from Mr. Bridey. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second from Ms. Lima, and we will open it up for discussion.
If I might, Aaron,
Yeah.
I really appreciate the opportunity to address what is clearly for this community a very difficult and unpleasant problem that we face. Sexual assault and child abuse are issues that affect people throughout the world. The fact is that sexual assault and child abuse have significant debilitating effects in all aspects of American society, with our community of North Kingstown being no exception. The most profound effects of sexual assault and child abuse are obviously on victims. They also cause harm to other aspects of society, contributing to a decline in public health and negatively affecting people of all races, ethnicities, sexual preferences, and identities. But victims are clearly the most affected. No one in our school department should tolerate or condone sexual assault or abuse of children. I knew that this was a major issue when I ran for election to this committee. I heard it from voters. I read it on social media. It saddened me and it angered me. Last week, when I received an email from a constituent, Megan Riley, I knew that I wanted to talk about this evening, and I immediately notified our chairperson that this subject had to be on tonight's agenda. And I'm grateful that Aaron agreed and put this topic on the agenda for discussion. The fact is, we can talk about this, but actions truly speak louder than words. And I want to what extent I can, provide an update on the actions that this committee is taking to try and address these issues. We are a policy-making body, and we are in the midst of making policy changes regarding sexual assault and abuse in this district. Some of these changes are underway right now. I've done a limited investigation with the time that I've had. I've had an opportunity to confer with our attorney. I've had extensive discussions with Dr. Earl. I appreciate the insight they both provided, and this is what I want to share. Last October, on October the 4th, before I joined this committee, former Chairman Greg Blasbalg announced that the school committee, through its attorneys, had retained the services of a consultant, Claire Hall. Ms. Hall is an attorney. She is a Title IX coordinator for our district. I'm not going to go over all of Ms. Hall's credentials, but she has a great deal of experience in dealing with civil rights and Title IX issues. She has worked for both the Rhode Island House of Representatives and the Rhode Island Senate on a commission and on a task force that addressed the problem of sexual assault in school settings. More information on her background is available for anybody who wants to see it in the minutes of the school committee meeting from October the 4th. Over the last 3 to 4 months, I'm advised that Ms. Hall has conducted a comprehensive review of all policies in our elementary, middle schools, and high school. That is a significant undertaking. Some policies may be different in different schools. Some may be redundant. Some may conflict. Some may be out of date. My point is that this is not a simple task, but it is certainly a very important one. Now, I know that Erin has had the opportunity to confer with Ms. Hall and has been updated about her progress. I have not yet had the pleasure of speaking with Ms. Hall, but I've been informed by our school attorney about her progress. By our next meeting, well, it won't be our next meeting, but by our meeting in 2 weeks, we are hoping that we're going to see a draft of a comprehensive anti-harassment policy. We are hoping that the first read of this global policy is going to take place on February 27th. My understanding is that Ms. Hall is also reviewing whether North Kingstown should hire a Title IX officer or an equity officer, or possibly someone who can handle both responsibilities. We are also reviewing policies involving the relationship between coaches and students. I understand that Ms. Hall hopes to have focus groups with students as well as training of staff and coaches on best practices going forward. In doing that, I'm advised that Ms. Hall may develop additional information and material and use that to help and refine our new policies. This is progress. It takes time, especially if you want to get it right. That's certainly what I want. I think that's what everybody on this committee wants. With that in mind, I want to turn for just a moment to the action taken by the Town Council last night. Their proclamation regarding sexual assault and child abuse awareness in April of this year is most welcome, and I endorse it, and I hope that I'm speaking for my fellow committee members. I appreciate that both Mr. Mancini and Ms. Anderson recognized that such a proclamation is overdue. And while I'm certain that I disagree with Ms. Riley on many issues, I agree with her on this one. We have to acknowledge the existence of sexual and child abuse, and we must do whatever we can to prevent it. We must also respect and do our best to acknowledge those who've suffered from it. And we must hold accountable anyone who engages in such behavior. As I said, this body is charged with making policy for our school department. Again, I hope I'm speaking for everybody on this dais that we take that job very seriously and we are moving as quickly as we can. We hope and expect that this community will be satisfied with our efforts. Erin, I really appreciate the opportunity to address this issue. I look forward to continuing the work to prevent these abuses wherever we can and to ensure that we have a safe community in which children can receive the best education that we can provide.
Okay. Further discussion on the Town Council April 2023 proclamation? I did want to add that, as I mentioned earlier, that I did attend the Town Council meeting and appreciate that they did pass their proclamation for the entire town. And I do very much, as we're going through and working with the consultant, anticipate some need for support in this area as far as administrative support and whatnot, as Mr. Bridie mentioned. And so I look forward to working with the town on this to make sure that we have what we need in place here to make sure that we're successful in the implementation and training of policies as well. So very much appreciate the town council, passing their proclamation and their future anticipated support. Any further discussion on the item that's on? Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, did you? I thought you went to speak, sorry.
I shook my head.
Oh, perfect, thank you. So hearing no further discussion on this, there's no action needed, and so we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is correspondence. I do not believe we have any correspondence to report. Okay, thank you. And then the last item, but very important, is our reports, and we do have one subcommittee that's met since we last met, and that is the CLAC subcommittee. And so, Ms. Hoskins, if you want to provide any information from that as our official liaison, that would be greatly appreciated.
Sure. Just to start, the CLAC met, which for those of you who don't know is the Special Education Local Advisory Committee. They have wondered if they should change the name so they could increase attendance, but the name is a Rhode Island state law, so they need to keep the name, but they've talked about other ways to go about increasing membership. This was the first meeting that in a while that has been very well attended. The interim director, Bretta Combs, introduced Kendra Winnock, who is now the new assistant director of pupil personnel services. She also discussed the status of the director search and commented on compliance findings, staffing issues, as well as discussed a program sponsored by RIDE where 30 administrators and educators, some from North Kingstown, participated to create specially designed instruction for co-teaching. Then Jackie DiLorenzo, who is the preschool coordinator, reported on the increase in preschool referrals, with most in the area of social development and speech and language delays. She stated that they have 62 new referrals to date for the program, which is unusually high and possibly a trickle-down effect from COVID. 62 is usually where they're at in July, and they're there at the end of January. She discussed how the department is working on ESY dates and beginning to outline a pre-K ramp-up program. The speaker that night was a company called Social Sparks. They gave a great presentation on mental health services that are offered in this area in South County Commons. There are therapy services provided for a variety of mental health and social anxiety issues, which include individual sessions, group sessions, clubs, camps, and telehealth services. They're a truly safe space for children who participate. We discussed thoughts of videotaping. The interim director pointed out the concerns of possible presenters objecting just because of the material being their material, and now that they can present it virtually, they don't all like to be videotaped. We discussed ways to increase CLAC membership. One of the requests was that from going forward that the pupil services office or from the superintendent's office send out a separate letter. In the past, they have been relegated to fun flyers for letting people know that there is a speaker or what the speaker is about, and not everybody reads the fun flyers. My kids are in high school. I don't even look at fun flyers for the most part. So I think sending out something separate would be greatly appreciated, and mostly because CLAC had a great presenter at this meeting, and it could have benefited the entire district. They have a wait list. They are overwhelmed as a company hiring more people, but at the same time, just because you are not on a 504 or have an IEP doesn't mean you can't benefit from the information that CLAC provides.
Thank you so much for that report and for the work that the CLAC subcommittee does. And so definitely made some notes based on the information that you're providing. And also wanted to note, I know that there was a request about being able to meet virtually, as that's very important for access for the group. And I did want to just confirm that we did look into that, and as far as just being able to have that meeting in Zoom like it was during the COVID times where the rules about being able to do that were available. And although that is not possible at this time, I did ask our district attorney and some other folks to look into possible ways to get exceptions for that, because I do think the points that you all made were very valid about why that would help with access and information, et cetera. And so I just wanted to note that request officially, and we will provide an update on that going forward. We can't currently do it because of the laws, but can definitely make sure to try to bring some awareness to the importance of that for specific families and communities in this district.
And then also that going forward in the budget season, there are going to be some requests for the Next Step program to bring it back to pre-COVID levels for field trips and things that those children were able to do in the community, which I think is really important, and it's not a large budgetary cost. And so as we get budget information in, that I will be producing requests for increasing those field trips back to pre-COVID.
Has it stopped because of COVID, or stopped because...
It stopped prior to COVID. They started cutting back, but it's something that I believe is very important.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
They have an amazing teacher who I think has brought forth the request, and I think it's warranted and needs to be looked at.
Okay, so yeah, and this is just a report out, and so if we want to have further discussion regarding the Next Step program and resources, we can. And Ms. Sapala looks like they would like to make a comment, so most certainly can, because I know that they were very involved in talking to the building folks and different things as far as recommendations and considerations. So Ms. Sapala, if you want to comment on that, please feel free to.
So a couple of things. First of all, the process for having a flyer sent out separately is an easy process. It simply has to come to my office for that, okay. And we just did that with NKEF on the Reading Madness Challenge, because to be putting that into fun flyers is too much. Now, ordinarily, you like to put out those group messages on those Friday fun flyers, but there are exceptions. And that would simply be, come to my office, I'd give the okay, and it would be put out separately.
I think in the past they were turned down, so I'm hoping with the new administration.
Yeah, it's a philosophy that we're going to certainly support. Can't be everything into everyone, and we'll make those decisions about where it's most appropriate. All right. So it'll be the Office of the Assistant Superintendent. Secondly, relative to field trips, are you saying the Next Steps program at Hamilton and...
The program at Hamilton.
And the problem, she simply has to make that request so that it gets into the budget. Again, the Assistant Superintendent's Office controls field trips. Special Ed would have the monies for a Next Step field trip. We are working on budget right now. We can add a line easily, but so I'll get in touch with her to make sure that happens.
I think in the past they've had 4, and I think they've been cut down to 1.
Okay. Yeah. And thirdly, I'd like to use this opportunity to report that there will be a parent workshop that I've just organized with ESS, our Effective School Solutions. Part of this year's contract is to provide more professional development. So they are doing that for teachers here at the high school in a 5-series. They are doing it for TAs. They presented workshops for our TAs at our September Professional Development Day, and they're scheduled for March Professional Development because they were very well received. And we are going to, and it was just determined this afternoon, have on next Thursday, February 16th, at 7 o'clock of a Zoom meeting that will be fully advertised, I hope by Thursday. And the title is Supporting Students with Stress and Excessive Worry for Parents and Caregivers. It's had good results in other school departments. It's a 60-minute, and it will be Zoomed. They do intend to get into some face-to-face workshops too, but they thought we'd start off with this one. So it's going to be that Thursday evening.
Thank you for that context, Ms. Sapala, in response to the subcommittee report. And then also, if you could make sure that the CLAC folks know, we'll obviously get that information out, but also as a liaison, make sure that they're aware of that as well. That's, I think, a great resource. And happy to hear that it's in Zoom, so hopefully folks will be able to attend as needed. Any other information that you wanted to share from the CLAC subcommittee update, Jen? Okay, thank you so much. And so that brings us to the end of the agenda. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Case. Can I get a second? Second from Ms. Lima. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you so much.